Hi everyone, welcome back. Sorry for the technical issues. If at any stage we have to switch to video, it's because it's a little bit slow. But you know, winter is coming, things are slowing down, all that kind of thing. Something I forgot to mention as well, Clare, Tuesday, Fire and Blood.
I know.
I'm so excited. I'm really hoping they have it ready for me in the shop here on Tuesday. So yeah. Oh, no volume. No volume? Can you hear me?
Nobody I can hear you. I can hear you.
Let me just...
Can you hear me, everyone? Anyone?
No, I'm definitely can hear it on YouTube. Bran, there is... It's you. It was him. It was him. That's okay. That's okay, Bran. You're here now. That's fine. Hey, Reese. Who else is in the chat? Johnny. Bran, of course. Mackenzie. Hey, Mackenzie. Thank you for dropping by. Ion, Johnny, Sunny. Did I miss anyone? Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I didn't even get to do a song of Ice and Fire Manny today. I'm just all over the place today. But I'm doing considerably better than some of the characters in our chapters today. So how did you get on this week, Claire? And hello, Claire. And how are you?
Hi, hello, I'm fine. The last couple of chapters were fairly quick for me, although there were a couple of parallels. There do seem to be more parallels with Jon and Dany chapters, I'm finding. Yeah. There's just this reference to 1,000 being thrown out left, right, and centre. And I thought to myself today, I'll be so disappointed if in the end it just means it doesn't come to anything and it's no reference to anything. At the moment, I'm thinking it just references magic. Something magical is happening, or this character might be a bit magical.
Yeah.
It's something to do with some sort of magical force. Yeah, I think I enjoyed the first couple of chapters, and Bran's chapter I definitely enjoyed this week.
I think we were bad students this week on the Jon and Dany chapters, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like they feel a bit filler-ish.
Yeah, they did a little bit.
I think it's just more like they're both in a knot of some sort. It's kind of, you feel like you're in a knot with the two of them. Anyway, I never said it at the start, but it is Reek 3, our last Reek chapter, hopefully our last ever Reek chapter, to Dany 6. And next week we are with the Prince of Winterfell to the Turncloak. So that's both. There are two Theon chapters, right? Is Turncloak a Theon chapter, or is that a Victorian chapter?
I think it's a Theon chapter. Yeah, because there's plenty of stuff going on at Winterfell, because the Manderleys are on the way, aren't they? So there's lots of tension and things building up in Winterfell.
And the Watcher, that's Victorian.
No. You know who I think that is?
Quentin? I'm terrible.
I think it's, and it kind of links into something that I want to discuss in Bran's chapter especially, and to an extent Jon's chapter. But I think the Watcher is Bloodraven.
Oh, okay. I can't remember that chapter at all.
Or it's Bran's chapter where he's watching things through the trees.
I can't remember that chapter at all. Anyway, we also have a Jon and Tyrion chapter next week as well. I mean, we get Jon and Tyrion, I think, more than anyone else in this book. But yeah, so that's what we're at. People, we're Reek 3 to Dany 6. I don't have the video set up, the event set up for next week, but I will set it up either later on tonight or during the week at some stage. But yeah, let's jump into Reek chapter 3. This is a great chapter to get to know Roose Bolton, right?
Yeah,
what a family. This is weird. I don't know if anyone else caught this. It's my first time catching this. Roose cleaning the mug, cleaning his cup out before he drinks from it. Does he think that Ramsay is trying to kill him at this stage?
Possibly, but he also strikes me as like just a bit OCD.
Maybe, yeah.
He's very different, isn't he? He doesn't seem to have a great deal of empathy for other human beings, including his own children.
Or the future of his house. Like it seems like he's not, I don't know, he's very different to anyone else that we've ever met in this story. He doesn't, like, he makes very flippant comments about Ramsay just, you know, he killed his last son. He'll probably kill the sons that I have with Big Walder, like Big Walder. You know, that's just what's going to happen. It's like,
yeah, probably for the best.
Bruce, what? Like everybody else is like, even like Tywin was really super concerned about the legacy and the future, and but it's not, I don't know, like even with Roose, it doesn't seem like there's much self-preservation going on. It's very strange character.
The only thing that I can think of that's, because it's like, okay, well, what does Roose want then? What's his motivation as a character? If he doesn't seem that interested in his house or his offspring or, you know, the lineage of the name of his house. But a couple of times he does talk about how what's important to him is a peaceful land and quiet people. Yes. And he also makes that in reference to Ramsay and Ramsay's behavior as well, and his displeasure at Ramsay's behavior. Ramsay's just putting on a complete show with his posse of, like, you know, big Walder and little Walder. I can never remember which one's which, but one of them seems to have kind of, he's adopted as his like protege, and then the other Walder is like not quite as bad as the other one, but you know, he's kind of wandering around flexing, you know, I'm not a bastard anymore, I'm now like a legitimate lord. But Roose, I'm thinking this may be where there are lots of theories about Roose linking to the others and possibly the Night King, but like a quiet people. That's, I mean, they are a fairly quiet people, and a peaceful land. You know, everything's dark and cold. That would be quite a peaceful land. He doesn't really seem to give a shit about other people, other human beings.
The only time he ever wants noise is in the bedroom. That seems to be the only thing he wants. It's very strange, because we get this story at the beginning with goats that Ramsay and his pack were on the road, and they came across this guy with his goats and kids, and they killed him because he called Ramsay Snow.
Yeah.
And they took the milk from the nanny and fried up the kids. And I couldn't help thinking, God, were these actually humans? Is this all a euphemism? I couldn't, like, for some reason, I couldn't get out of my head. But then you get this Manderley story quite quickly afterwards between Roose and Ramsay, where Manderley has bought like tons and tons of food with him and herds of goats.
Yeah.
Like the Manderley, and not hostages. Like basically they're bringing what the North actually needs. They need food. They need goats, which are going to last through the winter. They're going to be the best animals to have around. They're really, really hardy. And yet you have Ramsay, who's so shit, and everything will go to ruin with Ramsay, that when he sees a nanny and 4 kids, he instantly thinks, let's just eat them, rather than let's take them with us and actually use them to make more goats. Like there's a real disconnect there with actually leading and surviving and just kind of acting on instinct. Like he doesn't seem to, it's not like the Manderley mindset.
I don't really think Ramsay's got a very good grasp on command or being able to even make the right decisions, because I feel that, I don't know, the stories that Roose is kind of letting slip to Reek in this chapter about how Ramsay became fast friends with Reek, and there's something about this where it's like you don't quite know who corrupted who. Did Reek corrupt Ramsay, or did Ramsay corrupt Reek as small boys? There seems to be this very strange, like, I wouldn't say incestuous, but like these 2 boys just seem to be sort of in and out of each other's pockets. It's like by osmosis, they're changing almost into the same person. And then obviously in Winterfell at the very beginning, that's exactly what happens, is Ramsay is pretending to be Reek. and then somebody else ends up pretending to be Reek. There's a big influence there of this character, whether he's dead or alive. You know, he kind of permeates Ramsay's psyche, and to an extent that I think Reek is the person who controlled Ramsay rather than the other way around.
So Reek sounds like he was maybe transvestite. Maybe he had some condition where he felt like he smelled all the time. To the point
well,
where
he did. He had some sort
smell
of
all
condition.
the time, and
it was, well, everybody thought it was a curse, but it was something that he was born with. It didn't matter how, you know, he wore flowers in his hair, he used to bathe in perfume, everything, but there was something about him that just had this horrible stench.
Since birth,
Since birth, So it's like, you know, you're corrupted from the inside, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter if you sat in perfume all day, but there's, I mean, that just, seems very strange.
I wonder, will we hear more about this, because it's a very strange, odd ramble from Bruce. Bruce actually rambles quite a bit to Theon here. It's like, this is information I want to live on if something happens to me. Almost. There was that kind of a feel to it.
Why do you think Roose keeps Ramsay alive? Why does he bother even keeping him around?
I totally agree with you. But again, I think Roose is really bad at I don't know. Roose is even the way, just to go back to that Manderley thing, he didn't bring any hostages, and Ramsay said, yeah, that's really bad form, or whatever it is. And like anyone else would say, no, the food and the herds of goats, that's much better than hostages. That's what we need.
Yeah.
But Ramsay wants, Roose, they want human beings. They want, you can see why people have this vampiric kind of idea of Roose. I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I mean,
it could just be very practical. He keeps him around to carry out the real dirty work. And also he knows that, you know, I suppose the plan with marrying fake Arya to secure Winterfell is, you know, only really Ramsay would be able to do that rather than Roose. So I suppose that's securing some sort of a future for the house. But he's very strange with Reek in this chapter, where he's telling him that that he means him no harm, and that he owes him, you know, I owe so much to you. It's like what? What do you owe to me? Well, you know, you were the key to the north. I owe everything to you. So it's just weird.
And also the fact that he even has to say to Ramsay, can you stop saying that you killed the boys? Can you stop saying that you ravaged Winterfell, even to me? Yeah. There's something, Bran reckons there might be blood magic going on here, some sort, maybe. And suggests that maybe the previous Reek was dead, that maybe he started stinking. I don't know if Lady Stoneheart or Beric started stinking, though. I don't think they're rotting. I'm not sure about that. Maybe. I like the idea of what you're talking about there, Bran, about the Dany Ramsay parallels, because this is something I mentioned last week with the comments on Ramsay being evil because he's a child of rape. And this comes up a number of times from Roose as well in this chapter. And it made me think, and I said this last week, that however the news comes out that Jon is Lyanna, if he is Lyanna and Rhaegar's child, that it will also need to come out that they married, because it's irrelevant if he's a child of rape, or it's maybe not irrelevant, but it's dangerous if he's a child of rape. And then it got me thinking about Dany. Dany is a child of rape, and because of that, will the ordinary people in Westeros be actually even more suspicious of her, not just because she has dragons, but because she's a child of rape? Because that's quite a commonly known story, that her conception was as a result of rape. And while that was witnessed by Barristan, I believe we've heard that elsewhere. And there's no reason for people to keep that a secret now that worked with the Targaryens. So I'm sure it's kind of out there among a lot of people that she is a child of rape. there's potential as well that if Jaime and Cersei are children of rape, if they're Targaryens. So this idea, this child of rape thing, like, obviously you're not evil if you're a child of rape, but if that's an idea that people have at this time, that could be that. I think that's going to come back. I don't think that's just going to stay with Ramsay. It comes up too many times in connection with his character. I think it's going to come back again in connection with someone else later on, whether it's Jon or Dany or the Lannister twins.
I'm just trying to think of anyone else in that sort of same situation.
Yeah, I was trying to think. They were the only ones I could think of, unless it turns out that
I'm not so sure about that, because he's described in the chapter as, in Tyrion's chapter, as being like 17, 18, 19, and Tyrion's only mid-20s, so
yeah, she's a bit too old.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really think of anyone else, unless Tyrion does have a child out there with Tysha. But yeah, it comes up. There's quite a bit of time spent on it.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Jane Eyre. Quite a bit of time spent on the idea of bad blood in Jane Eyre. That was a huge concept up until the 20th century. That this idea that bad blood stays with you and it defines your characteristic. And of course it does if you're treated differently because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But Dany hasn't been, because she's royal. But it could be very different later on. Craster is a son of rape, potentially. Yeah, that's true. Actually, so is pretty much all of his children, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, could be Mance. Maybe.
So Lady Dustin is described as being staunch for Bolton. And
staunch is a little too close to stench for me. Something doesn't smell right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of kind of politicking going on in the next few chapters at Winterfell, and Roose has to tell Ramsay to just reel it in, stop being such like an idiot, and be discreet about what's, blame the Ironborn for everything that you've done, everything that's happened. It's not like Theon's going to turn around and go, actually, I object to, the Ironborn's name being dragged through the mud. No, let's just blame everything that you've done on the Ironborns, and for God's sake, just, like dial it down a bit, this ridiculous behaviour that you've got, this bad boy behaviour.
Well, it is interesting what you said there. Why does he keep him alive? Because even like when the miller's wife, it was a miller, right? The miller's wife comes back to him and says, "Oh, here, like, this is your kid." There's also something very strange about where he rapes her. He rapes her while her husband is hanging from the tree in front. It's almost like the husband is a sacrifice to the tree while this conception is happening. I wonder, is there something a bit more ritualistic going on with this rape? It doesn't seem like he makes it sound like it was the vengeful thing, but it's a lot of effort to go to.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more vengeful to keep the miller alive, knowing that that's happened?
Yeah.
But it seems very ritualistic. So
there's a bit of this, isn't there, in these chapters about tasting blood, and I mean the Bran chapter especially, but a little bit in the Jon chapter as well. So it could be a ritualistic death in front of a tree.
Bran said that there's something about black blood that they mention. You never found more than 2 or 3 white trees growing together. A grove of 9 was unheard of. The forest floor was carpeted with fallen leaves, blood red on top, black rot underneath. That does sound like a Bolton. For sure. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And Bran says they're also the legitimate Targaryen colours. Blood and black. Yeah, that's true. I like that. But what does it all mean? It's so confusing. Yeah.
So Roose feels that Lady Dustin is staunch for Bolton because she blames Ned. She's not a fan of the Starks because she blames Ned for a husband's death. It's still not clear to me with Lady Dustin whether or not this grudge that she holds, is it because she's grieving for a husband, or is it because she's grieving for Brandon? Because there's or even Ned possibly, but that he seems Roose, that's a mistake there. He seems to think that Lady Dustin is staunch for Bolton, and I don't necessarily think that's the case. He also is kind of guessing already at this point that the Manderleys are plotting against them. So this is all, all of this stuff is going to be brewing and percolating nicely over the next couple of chapters, where they just, I mean, that scene that we've got coming up where it all kicks off in Winterfell and they're jumping over tables at each other in the Great Hall is like, what? It just you can feel it just boiling over, and this is the beginning of it.
This chapter is so confusing because the only thing I can think of as to why on earth he would want to keep Ramsay alive is that he needs Ramsay's blood, he needs his body in some way, because he's an idiot, Ramsay. He's a proper idiot. He's a sociopath, which doesn't bother Roose apart from the fact that it just draws too many red flags and causes too many issues. But he's just really stupid as well. Like even that whole stuff with the Frey boys going missing, and Ramsay's like, so who cares? There's loads of Freys. And it's like, are you serious? Like if that was any other dad, can you imagine if Tyrion had said something like that to Tywin? Like just no way. And Roose just goes, oh come. Like it's just really like,
I know.
Just is there? And maybe he's afraid. I don't think he is afraid of him though. Maybe, I don't know, is he going to steal his body, or is he going to, I don't know. There's something weird about this kid. I really want to know more. What does he say? Oh yeah, Bran is talking a lot about, maybe that Jon is the secret Targaryen, red and then black.
Also, maybe Lady Dustin, she might be staunch for Roose Bolton, but I really don't think she is for Ramsay, because Domeric was one of her favourites. He was her page while he was, before he got murdered by Ramsay.
Domeric sounds lovely.
Yeah, he sounds like
he sounds a bit like Rhaegar.
Like a real good egg. Yeah.
Yeah. The description of him, and that he would ride with Lyanna. Was it Lyanna that he was talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The half horse, half woman, the Stark.
Yeah.
But how old is Roose then? If his son was old enough to hang out with Lyanna. Like Roose must be way older than Ned. Unless he had a kid when he was like 13 or something.
I don't know. But
there's something, I don't know. Roose is a bit weird. He's a real strange egg. And he's had a couple of wives, right? So
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something very strange. Very strange. I need a history of the Boltons. Maybe I don't actually. That's all I had for week 3. Just, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. He's not Theon. The way it was put at the end of this chapter, it made me think, did anyone not get that? The way he kind of spells it out, it's like, surely he didn't need to spell it out. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? That's Theon. Just a little thing. Just a little thing. Was there anything else from Reek?
No, just obviously a nice, what's happening here, at least on the surface, is Roose wants to use Theon to legitimize everything that they're doing that's kind of fake, basically. The fake wedding, the fake Arya, the just all of it. We've got somebody here who knew all of these people when he was growing up. He can kind of legitimize, corroborate what we're saying, even though everybody at this point seems to know that it's all fake. Interesting, though. I'm looking forward to those chapters coming up, those Winterfell chapters.
Me too. Reese says, I didn't follow the whole conversation, but we all know the Night King is going to win, right? Hashtag Team Night King. And Bran is saying that Summerhall was created with one dragon, Winterfell will create another. Oh, sorry, Summerhall created one dragon, Winterfell will create another. And he thinks that Roose is about 40. Yeah, I don't know. Roose could be 103. I don't know. He's a weird fish. All right. So, and also that bit where Ramsay creepily whispers to Reek that he's definitely taking a finger the next time he comes back.
Yeah.
Tyrion?
Yeah.
I didn't get much out of this chapter, I have to admit. This is I know you're going to want to talk about well, I don't know what you're going to want to talk about. There's only really one thing that really sticks out to me. Listening to Davos Fingers podcast, I can't remember who it was, but one of them had a theory about there's a lot of references in Tyrion's POVs since the very first time we see him with Jon in a Game of Thrones to Tyrion casting long shadows.
Yeah.
And that this might be the shadow that's referenced in Dany's prophecy, that you'll have to pass beneath the shadow, that it might be passing beneath Tyrion in some way or surviving whatever Tyrion does to her.
Yeah.
So I quite liked that because it's mentioned in this chapter as well.
Also, this chapter got me thinking about the name of the ship, the name of this cog, the stinky steward, the Cohoric, whatever. And Makoro is kind of translating what it is and what it means. And at one point he says, like fragranced, like flowery. And that the other word is like the steward or the basically the hand of the king. So a flowery hand of the king, flowers, eye garden, Mace Tyrell. So I'm like, maybe the stinky steward or the flowery hand, you could interpret it as is somebody like beware of this person. And my God, I would say beware of the Tyrells. And there was a I can't remember which pod, whether it was Order of the Green Hand or somebody else. I can't remember. It could have been In Deep Geek, talking about how Mace Tyrell during Robert's Rebellion kind of played both sides, because he had a really easy job of just turning up at Storm's End and holding a siege for quite a while until Ned turned up, sorted it all out, and then they all kind of, he then solidified his support of Robert. But he could quite easily have turned around and said, I've not hurt anyone. I was only told to be here by like the warden of wherever, maybe we all should be being a bit more aware of Mace Tyrell and the flowery folk of Highgarden.
So do you think they could be the perfumed seneschal?
Possibly, yeah, could be, rather than more of the obvious stuff like Varys or what's he called? Not Hisdar, the steward that's in
Raznek.
Raznek, yeah. Possibly, yeah.
So the storm, the tempest that they have to deal with in this chapter, where do you think that's a natural thing? Do you think that's sent by somebody?
I think that there's a lot of weird stuff going, and I don't know if it's just Tyrion on seafaring adventures, but there seems to be a little bit of kind of freaky time traveling stuff going on with like where the sun is and the sky is red and it's not in the right direction you expect it to be at that time of day, and have this spun round and what's going on. It was a little bit like that on the that like raft that they were on, that he was on with Griff, which he does actually think about. He thinks that he preferred to being on the cog with young Griff. And he's also not mentioned to anybody at all. He's completely kept this to himself, that he actually ran into potentially Aegon Targaryen and where he's heading. You know, he's not told anybody this whatsoever, and he's usually a bit of a leaky bucket, Tyrion, when it comes to letting people know what he knows. He's also
not drinking.
Yeah.
So that might be, you know, I'm a leaky bucket when I drink as well. Yeah. So.
Me too.
In more ways than one. But that is one thing that he says straight away almost. Oh, this ship doesn't have as many people. Everybody is who they say they are on this ship.
Yes, yeah.
But maybe this ship isn't what it is saying it is. If that, like, it may come from somewhere else, for sure.
I think there's something about the whole atmosphere at the first part of this chapter, which culminates in both Tyrion and Penny realizing that they do want to live, they want to survive. They've made it through this storm, and it's that kind of like, right, okay. I mean, there's a bit of a kind of road movie aspect to them sort of becoming friends. And I actually thought that she was a lot younger and he was a lot older, but they're actually not that far off in age, especially if she's 19 and I think Tyrion's about 24, 25 at this point.
There's no one else in the series, and I mean no one, even Arya, that I want to give a bigger hug to than Penny.
Yeah.
Poor girl. I mean, and Tyrion is kind of. I kind of dreaded these scenes because I know he can be quite mean to her, but I think he has this kind of relationship with most people he likes where there's a lot of banter and there's a lot of piss taking. And I don't think he knows how to have a relationship that's not like that. So when he's calling her pig bacon and stuff like that, he's doing it kind of like, oh, come on, let's.
Yeah, he's silly.
That she doesn't like. She's been mocked her entire life.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know. Like, it's as if she doesn't have a sense of humor because she's been the butt of every joke, and he doesn't know. Like, I think it's for him. It's really the first time he's seeing this. Is that you think you had a bad being born a little person as a Lannister, but this is what it's really like.
Well, I actually think there's loads of things peppered into the text here that I think link Tyrion to being Tywin's son much more than it does the twins. And this is one of those examples for me that Tyrion himself seems to have this exact same disgust about dwarves as his father did, as Tywin did. But it's not that he sort of sees himself as any different. He knows what he is, but it's that absolute shame and embarrassment of the performing and the juggling and making people laugh, and that side of things, not the absolute horrific treatment of dwarves in this world, in this scenario where they just get taken off and their heads chopped off or whatever. And it's just like, he should be absolutely in his position, elevated position, completely up in arms about rights for little people kind of thing. But he's not. He just sees the shameful side of it, and she's personifying that, obviously. And there's a real there's a bit of a battle going on here with Tyrion, and that he wants to comfort her, and he wants to be able to, I think he wants to sort of be like, look, please don't blame me. It really wasn't me. It wasn't anything to do with me. She needs to kind of target her blame towards somebody or something. So she's, here he is in her face. Ultimately, they end up becoming friends past this like symbolic storm and things. But
this is Tyrion's, I mean, we say it all
the
time.
There is a disgust there.
This is Tyrion's Lannister tribal thing comes first. That's the first identifier. And even says to Jorah at one stage, "Oh, marry type with type. Well, why don't you go find yourself a bear?" Like for him, it's like you stick in your tribe.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually see beyond that. Like Penny's tribe isn't necessarily where she was born. Like she loves her family and her brother and all that, but it's really more about like the fact that she's in a position as a little person. And if you go to even someone like Dany, yes, Dany says, I'm the dragon, but her first thing is, I am Khaleesi, I am mother, I am a woman. Like that's because that's what everybody sees when they see her first, right? They see woman and then Targaryen. They don't see Targaryen and then woman. You know what I mean? It's the same maybe with Cersei. This is a big issue with Cersei. Cersei's constantly dealing with this idea that, but for Tyrion, he has always gone with the Lannister first. Even when everybody else is saying, you're a little person, you're a little person.
You're right, that is his first identifier.
Yeah. So that's what's going to drive him more than anything else. And even Jaime, like Jaime is like, I'm a knight. You know, he like you get that way more than you get on a Lannister.
So I'm going to ask you to stake a yes or no in this question.
Oh God. Okay.
Is Gerion really the Stony King?
Yes, I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think so.
Just every single time that Gerion is mentioned, so is something to do with that incident or something to do with the history and lore of the Stone Men and the Stony King. It's too. He dreamt. So in this chapter, he thinks of Gerion previously in the chapter, but also in this dream that he has. He dreams of the Stony King with his father's face. And then he just starts thinking about how Gerion ended up in Volantis, and then he has the conversation with Moqorro about 14 flames and how the Empire was built on blood and fire.
Oh, sorry, I think my link went out twice to Twitter. Is that what you're talking about, Reese? Sorry. I when I originally signed in, my thing cut out, so it may have gone twice. Sorry if it did. It's the same link though, so yeah. Sorry, Reese. I don't know. This thing has a mind of its own. That's weird. So I have my account on YouTube set up to instantly tweet when we go live.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
If it cuts out, it must send the tweet again, even though the link hasn't changed. Sorry, Reese. Sorry about that.
Technical problems at the start.
It's the same thing. Sorry. Yeah, I do think he's the Stony.
Yeah.
It's funny actually because Delush Polish they have 3 different Game of Thrones collections.
All right.
And they've one called the Stone Man, and I don't know who it's inspired by, but it's a blackened base with Lannister colored glitters, like red and gold glitters. I don't know if it's because I'm guessing whoever creates for that brand also creates also reads the books as well. Kat, how are you, Kat? Can't get the bloody staff. Technical problems, my arse. Evening late. Yeah,
hello, I know. Hello.
Yeah, yeah. The staff here is terrible, Kat. Yeah, but
so we're talking about Moqorro fighting the darkness, and his First of all, it might be worth pointing out that Moqorro is twice the size of Jorah. This is a big guy. He's huge. He's absolutely huge. He's talking about fervently, obviously, about R'hllor and fighting the darkness. Will Dany, do you think, take to R'hllor? Is she going to buy this? He's been sent, hasn't he, by Bonero to convert her to this religion. And everybody seems to be like the Red Priests, or they seem to be sort of in support of Daenerys.
Yeah.
So
this seems to be a theme in Dany's chapter as well, where a lot of pressure is being put on her for religious reasons. because religion and the culture are so tied together.
Yes, lots of traditions. She's never appeared as a particularly religious character. She doesn't really talk about the Seven very much. She references, I think, different, it's not like she doesn't realize there are different religions out there, but she's not, she doesn't pray to or visit the Godswood or any, there's nothing. We
don't really get much about the Targaryen. Well, hopefully we will after this week. The Targaryens and religion in general.
I'm just wondering if she would take to it. It is, it's fire and blood. It's the god of fire. Is it going to be something that she thinks this makes sense? Okay, I'll adopt this. It could be
argued that the Targaryens are the most secular. Because they definitely go up against the faith a lot in history. You're right, she doesn't pray. It is all about the fire and the magic. Hey, AU, yeah, I've got all my swatch sticks drying back there. It's I'm worried. I'd be worried about a Targaryen taking on a faith. That could be a very dangerous thing.
I mean, there have been lots of
you had Maegor and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, and Baelor the Blessed, he was like all about the Seven.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe she. I just.
Man, I can't wait for this book. This week.
I know.
And I was just thinking, oh God, I wish we didn't have any more on the Targaryens. Then I was like, shut up, you want as much as possible. After that excerpt, I'm like,
I don't think I'm going to be able to pick it up actually until Friday.
I won't have anything read. I won't spoil anything or anything like that. It'll take me a while to get through it. But yeah, I'll definitely dip in.
It might actually be my sort of over, because we're visiting the family over Christmas. It might be my Christmas read actually.
Avoid the fights over the last leg of turkey read. Yeah.
Do you think that Euron and Dany will ever meet?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Sorry, I got distracted because Sept asked me. I missed the tweet about today's nails. I didn't get to do nails today. Sorry, Sept. I'm so sorry. But there's a whole thing on my Instagram page. Like, I have all my old ones, if you've missed any of them, over there. So sorry about that. But I'll be back next week. I just didn't get a chance today. I think they will. Yeah, I think they will.
And what they're alluding to here in the TV show is that Euron starts to, begins to have this political alliance / marriage relationship with Cersei.
Yeah.
So Mokoro's looking into the flames. He's seeing this thing with one black eye and 10 long arms sailing on a sea of blood. That can only be Euron, or Victarion being Euron's creature. There's a ton of theories out there that I just can't get my head around about Euron being some sort of like time-traveling faceless man who is all of a sudden Dario, or all of a sudden his dad.
I don't know. Some of the theories are the longer we wait, the more the more kind of head bending they get. Yeah,
I mean the whole just figuring out time and distances and timelines is just like, it's bad enough without thinking, can somebody travel across those kind of distances? Then you've got the black candles, I guess, and
it's so funny that Sept brought up my nails. Sorry to go off point, because I just remembered last night I had a dream that we were in a pub drinking and I was doing your nails because you were like, you have to do Game of Thrones nails. I was like, okay. But we were hammered.
Did they turn out
funny,
good?
I just literally, I can't even remember. It's just literally just hit me there. I had a weird dream. Oh God, the bad side of dreaming Clare and nails.
You never know, that could happen.
Or maybe it was a glass candle. Maybe Clare was trying to send me messages when we go to the con. I'll do your nails. And yes, of course I was drinking AU, even in the dreams. But yeah, anything else for Tyrion here? There's like quite a few. We have a bit about the Doom as well.
A little bit, yeah. and not to. It's wise not to look directly into the flames. I think it's just interesting that Tyrion's clearly not taking to this religion whatsoever. He just the whole. I think did make me laugh when he was kind of listening to the morning prayers, and he's kind of sat there in his corner going, "The night is dark, blah 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 blah," and it's like,
yeah.
So he's, it's not something that's affecting him or that he's taking to or anything. He might see Makoro as like magical and slightly mystical, but he's not buying it, which just made me wonder whether or not Dany would, or whether she'd be kind of the same as Tyrion.
It's kind of funny that the two newest families, if you like, in Westeros, kind of the Lannisters and Targaryens. I mean, Lannisters were there, but like elevated families, if you like, are the most secular. Like, they're the least religious.
Yeah, that's true.
Because even with Boltons, there's something going on, I think, with the Boltons. But yeah, I don't know. A religious Dany. Does she need anything else in her head? Sometimes it's hard to keep up with her. She's allowed to change her mind, remember? But yeah, that's all I had for Tyrion. I mean, the next chapter is a big one, right?
It's huge.
It's huge. It's huge.
I've tried to just kind of list the questions that I've got. This is a very gothic, kind of grisly chapter. It's where Bran starts having, he's got his own Wayward chair. He's kind of hooked into the network.
Wayward throne. Excuse me.
Yes. Yeah. Wayward throne.
So let's just tell. It is Bran 3. So it's like, it's a couple of months after he's arrived, right? He's been there a couple of months at this stage.
Seemingly, yes. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we have him on his throne. There's so much. I don't even know where to start. Where do we start, Claire?
There's a few questions that I've got that we can just kind of get into, just some of the things that are observed in this chapter. But also, I can't help but fly off into a little bit of tinfoil territory in this chapter.
Everybody get the hats on.
First of all, what do we think the consequences are of eating whites when you're walking?
Yes. Okay. This was a really interesting thing, because there's a great line with the arm remembered it was dead.
Yes. Yeah.
As if like each part of each limb comes alive. Like we tend to think, we talked a little bit, I think, about this last week. We tend to think of whites as being mindless zombies. And I know James and LaDonna have this whole thing about free will, that it's actually you're giving up free will and joining the army, if you like. But the more I get into this reread in particular, the more parallels you can see between whites and between people who are just forced by their lords and liege lords and whatever to fight on their behalf with little to no reward. Like, it's not like they have much of a choice either. And while being a white is clearly a bad thing, there does seem to be, like, every part of your body becomes more animated. And it's funny, because I was binging Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Yes, I am that person. I binge watched it this week. And this idea that you sign yourself over to the devil to get more power, but he's giving you're giving him your free will. Yeah. Like, you get free will from God, the false God as they call it, but the devil will give you power in exchange for your free will. Yeah. And it feels a bit like that with the whites. It's like they get more powerful, if you know what I mean. Like, it's almost like they can do more with their bodies, but their mind is gone. I don't know.
There's also something eerily similar, though, about it. Kind of feels a little bit like Bran is signing his soul to the devil in this chapter. There's just something there that like when he's walking Hodor, he doesn't want, like, he already realizes it's wrong because he knows the best thing to do is keep his mouth shut and not really tell anyone about it. But he is accompanying Jojen and Mira on their investigations, adventures, whatever, as Hodor, and repeating every Hodor, when he could quite easily just speak as Bran. Oh, by the way, I'm on 2 feet. I'm coming, you know, I'm going to climb down this rope with you and what have you. He knows it's wrong. He also knows that there's a slight bit in this chapter where he thinks about comforting Mira and giving her a hug, and he knows that he can't do it. He can't stand up and do that and walk across to her. So he thinks very briefly, momentarily, about walking Hodor to give Mira this hug, this physical comfort. And then he also immediately thinks, why do I feel freak? Why is that thought making me feel uncomfortable? In the middle of all this, they walk off anyway, and it doesn't. But it's just the fact that is laboured, that Bran has these creepy thoughts about how he can use Hodor to do certain things for him, or how he can manipulate certain situations, but he better not say anything about it because people might not be able to kind of grasp what he's trying to do. Yeah. There's something quite... I don't know whether it is that he's being sort of brainwashed, this weird paste that they're giving him to eat.
Well, who knows? Okay, well, let's go back to the Hodor thing, because this is like one up there with like one of the top 3 creepiest thing in the entire series.
Yeah.
This idea that he describes Hodor as going into a pit in his mind where nobody can touch him.
Yes.
Now, this to me, I mean, if anyone has seen, oh God, it's completely gone out of my head. The Jordan Peele movie, Get Out, where they go into the sunken place. Have you seen it?
No. It's not yet. I know.
Oh my God, it's
mentioned it to me before. I know. Yeah.
No, and it's so like this though. This idea that you can see what's going on. You're in a pit almost. It made me wonder a couple of things. Will Bran ever get to the stage where he can get into that pit? And if he does, will he ever get to the stage where he can't get out?
Quite
will
possibly.
He ever push it with somebody? Maybe not Hodor, but somebody else.
Where he just ends up getting trapped somehow. What's sad is we know from the TV show, I think that's one of the things that has been revealed. It'll be in the books. That is a place that Hodor made for himself probably quite a long time ago, and that's why Bran can't get to it, because it's so old and secure, and somewhere where it's like, no, you can't get to me here. The consequence is I'm out of my mind and I can only say the word Hodor, but you can't get to me here. You can't reach me here. This is my safe place, which is horrible.
I feel
it's
like
awful.
There's something more to that like Bran will trap somebody in a pit, or will be trapped in a pit, or maybe the 3-Eye Raven will be trapped in a pit of some sort. There's something quite visceral about it. And it also made me think that there's a huge thing that I am guilty of ignoring with Bran, that this only works with Bran because he has absolutely no notions of being in charge and wanting to be in charge and wanting power. Like he takes power without even really needing, like without wanting it. Like if this was somebody else, like this is why I like the theory that maybe Bloodraven has tried this with somebody like Euron or something like that. That
Roose.
He tried it with people that maybe were far too ambitious. And because there is zero ambition beyond wanting to be a knight with Bran, beyond wanting to be of service.
Yeah.
And he is a child, but he takes over Hodor like a child, you know, like he doesn't see, like he says, oh, he doesn't seem to understand. Like I'd never stay here. I always give him back. Like I just want to borrow him.
There is that innocence, but there is also, I think he sees things are wrong. He feels the things that he's doing could be wrong. But I think whether it's because he's too young or he's not had the responsibility or whatever, he's not necessarily making the right decisions. And I think the worrying thing is right at the beginning of this chapter was he was warging Summer whilst Summer was eating a white, and we hear in other chapters about eating in the Dany chapter when the Astapori slaves are so desperately sick and ill that they're starving that they're starting to eat each other. And the Dothraki are like, it is known, it's like a curse and corruption and what have you. And is there a link here to what's I mean, apart from the fact that it's vile and disgusting that you're basically kind of eating a zombie, and it's that it's rotten, the flesh is rotten and things, but so it's there's actual physical corruption there, but like symbolic corruption.
Yeah,
I don't know, it does feel like there's some sort of weird is Bran being cursed here by all of this, by eating this weird paste, by being exposed to this. I mean, one of my main questions for everybody really about this chapter is, are green seers born or are they made?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah, that's a really big question for me as well. Sonny says, do you think Bran will get trapped in the dragon pit? That's an interesting idea, Sonny. Yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know. There's some, I think at the end I think Bran will be trapped somewhere at the end. I'm not sure where though. Connie says Bran taking over Hodor is similar to Theon taking over Winterfell. That is actually, yeah, I like that, Connie, because Theon is like, why? It's way better than I take Winterfell. What's wrong with them? It's
I'll give it back. I know it's not bad.
Yeah, they know me. It's like, okay. Septa says people have said that the Three-Eyed Raven want Bran to take his place in the trap. It's I totally see that, but it's like Bran isn't the best person. Like I still don't know how he's going to get out of it. Like Three-Eyed Raven, does he just want to die then? If that's the case,
I think that, well, let's get on to that. I think the first, there's so many things in this chapter
I know
that I kind of had forgotten that Leaf and Ash and Snowbeard, whatever they're called, that's not their names. They are the names that Bran and Mira have given them because they can't handle the human brain and can't actually handle the names that the singers are. They refer to themselves as the singers rather than the children of the forest. But they all okay, so there's definitely a relationship between the singers and the ravens, almost to an extent where it kind of feels like at one point in history these two things were interchangeable, and let's not forget that despite what they look like on the TV show, the children of the forest or the singers are not, they're magical creatures. They're not humanoid physical beings. They are magical creatures that can live for 1,000 of your man years. Well, no, that's the Wayward trees, but Leaf describes herself as being about 200 years old. So time generally is a different concept in this chapter. We get the whole whizzing back through time through the Wayward tree. There's something about Bran, definitely. I think they know that there's something about Bran. I don't think he's just been chosen because he's a warg and a skin changer and a Stark. I think there's something specific about Bran that they have targeted, and they're now teaching / grooming, whatever. I think there is something. If you're looking at like Children of the Forest, are they on the more agreeable side or sinister side? For me, I would say they fall more on the sinister side of things.
Yeah, definitely.
The fact that they are able to keep a part of themselves for many, 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 many years. I mean, again, we don't even really understand the concept of time with them and years and you know, it's all very based on nature. The acorn is the oak and the oak is the acorn, that kind of thing. But they also are, so they're interchangeable with the trees and nature. They're in the tree, you know, the green sea, that's their thing, that's how they can live forever. Does this mean that the children of the forest are the gods? Because they're able to permeate into that. That's because if they are so much part of the weirwood trees, and the weirwood trees are seen as not just symbolic of the religion, but the gods of the religion.
I kind of feel like the children of the forest are angel-like or demon-like, that they have. If it's hard to use language that doesn't exist with the weirwoods, but they've been giving divine powers by the Weirwood network, or they've acquired divine powers by the Weirwood network, but they themselves aren't necessarily divine. If that
men forget, only the trees remember. But then you've got a character like Bloodraven who seems to be able to come in and out of the trees, like, again, there's this interchangeable thing, you know, and the way the whole process is of what Bran's going through is described as like slipping out of your skin. It's this, like, you know, you're able to kind of just very easily, like, putting on a different pair, slipping on a comfortable pair of shoes. It's not a difficult process. And there's a point in this chapter where it's kind of feels like, you know, Bran's getting some tutelage from Bloodraven, and he's like, oh, you know, I'm tired, time for me to go back into the trees. And it's like, so he vanishes there, and then somehow, however long he's in there, or however many centuries or whatever, he somehow manages to reappear again on his Wayward throne the following day for more instructions and more, you know.
I have to say, this stuff breaks my brain a little bit.
It is, yeah.
It's like, I can't, like, take me back to the Miranese knot, please. It's like, this stuff is like, it's hard to visualize, and it's hard to fathom the purpose, obviously. I mean, it's deliberately not opaque, right? But I feel like there's something about, they needed, I think there's something, because it's such a character-driven series, right? Personality-driven series. I feel like it can't be just a magical or genetic or historical reason. I think there has to be something about the personality of the person that they need in the Weirwood network at that time. So for Bloodraven, for instance, if you look at the history of Bloodraven, the way he handled the throne, the way he operated as the Hand, then to be moved to the wall, what he did at the wall, the loyalty he inspired, the sense of stability he tried to bring to the kingdom, with no limits to what was needed to be done with that stability. That's what they needed in order to get Bran. But Bran is such a pure, non-power hungry character. Like, he's the purest non-power hungry character that we have. I feel like I was trying to think maybe Penny. Like, I was trying to think of somebody who's that pure in not wanting to rule anybody, not wanting to, with the exception of Hodor, obviously. But even when he does it with Hodor, he's not doing it to be, he's doing it out of necessity almost. But I feel, I don't know, there's something about Bran. He just never sees himself as a king, right? And that's unusual, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, he was never going to be, when he was growing up, he never saw himself as, I'm going to be the, you know, the heir to Winterfell. He saw himself as being a knight. So physically, that's a massive thing for him, that the ability to be a knight and to walk again has been taken from him. So he's built his entire childhood psyche is built around that as a motivation for him, not that he wants power or to be king or king of the north or warden of the north or whatever. Those things just don't seem to be on his radar at all, because they really never were. There was no, he wasn't born into that.
Even when he became Lord of Winterfell, didn't want it. He hated it. If you remember those miserable chapters, he hated that in Clash. Really, really hated it. Connie said
even the thing that motivates him to walk Hodor is because he wants to climb, because that's what he used to do. That's who he used to be. So there is definitely
he's so curious.
There's a vulnerability there. But I think if we just simplify this whole concept into, a huge sci-fi trope is this concept of eternal life, being able to live forever. We've heard in this chapter that, some trees can be however many years old, redwood trees or whatever, 300 years old, in the right circumstances, and the right circumstances seem to be somewhere very, very dark. That's where they seem to be more powerful. But in the right circumstances, there is this entity here, this living organic thing, this wayward tree, that can live forever. Then on top of that, you've got this other entity that can merge with this and also effectively, in a way, in a roundabout way, live forever. So that's a huge thing in terms of power, in terms of aspirations for power and control. And I think that there's a couple of things. This is where I'm going with this tinfoil thing. Okay, just bear with me for a second. Leaf, the singer, says, "Men forget, only trees remember." And that's why Bloodraven is lingering on. He's not a well person. He shouldn't really still be alive, but he's lingering on for some reason, so that he can pass something on to Bran. And he seems, there's a bit of a speech from Bloodraven where he seems almost like he's tired. He's tired of this. He kind of, he has been hanging on, waiting for this to happen, so that he can just, it can be something that's over for him then, and he can rest or whatever. But there's also this sadness about him just watching. All I do is watch. That's all he's able, that's all he's able to do is watch. He's tried to communicate, doesn't work. Which I know a lot of people think that attempts to communicate is the Mad King going crazy with the voices in his head or whatever, that could have been some attempt by Bloodraven. But I think that Bloodraven has been watching, and I think that Bran... So my question is Bloodraven watching or interfering? And I think as much as he'd want to interfere, and he's probably tried to interfere, he can't. He hasn't got the power. He's not able to do it. Whereas Bran seems to be able to, like, hey, Dad, over here. And Ned's like, what the heck is that? What's going on? He seems to be, there's something there. Even when he's not sat on the Wayward throne and he's in his bed, he's in his like little cot or whatever in the middle of the tree. He has this dream at the end of the chapter that's really strong and powerful, where he's whizzing back through time. He's doing that without Bloodraven being there. He's also able to, during those things, it seems like he's able to communicate. So I think what's happening here is that's all Bloodraven has ever been able to do. That's the extent of his powers. He can enter the Wayward tree and he can watch.
So when he was able to communicate with Bran, when Bran was in a coma in a Game of Thrones,
that's him pushing the extent of his powers.
Or it's because Bran can do it.
Yes,
naturally.
Yeah, he can just receive it more. Like it's like sending a radar out and like, yeah, over here.
Yeah, Bran has the better technology to receive the code, if you like.
So they describe this, and then it just made me think about this word watching. All I can do is watch. The only, men forget, only the trees remember. But Bloodraven's been there watching and watching and watching for however many years, not being able to interfere or change anything, but just watching. there's also, this to me links into the next chapter with Jon, just this word watcher, and the other reference that we have to watchers in the book is the watchers on the wall. And I'm wondering, it makes me think, when you think of the vows, when you think of the vows of the Night's Watch in the next chapter, my watch begins. Well, Bran's watch has just begun. He's now become a watcher. You will live and die at your post. Well, that's kind of pretty much what Bloodraven and Bran is perhaps just about to embark on. You live and die at your post. For this night and all the nights to come. So I'm wondering, and this is where my crazy tinfoil theory is, are the brothers on the wall, the Black Brothers on the wall, are they supposed to be all Greenseers? Is that what the wall is supposed to be? A defense of Greenseers who take this vow to watch and be the watchers on the wall and be like the magical defense?
Well,
yeah.
Just to go back, and it kind of links in with what I was saying about Bran, because actually, and I'm reading it here off my mug, right? It's actually the first line is, the first lines are, night gathers and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. Which is often an overlooked statement. I'll wear no crowns and win no glory. This is Bloodraven's life.
Yes.
He is a watcher. He's a much maligned character. The reason he went to the north in the first place is because, and it's an underhanded trick to be sure, but he gets the last, what they think is the last surviving male Blackfyre to King's Landing and basically kills him. Yeah. He entices him over and say, oh yeah, no problem, let's talk it out so there's no more rebellion, and just kills him. And is it Jaehaerys? No, who was king? Sends him to the wall anyway. I can't remember who it is.
I can't remember. I thought it might be Jaehaerys, but maybe not.
But yeah, and that's why he's sent to the wall. It's like, yeah, you did the right thing, but it was a pretty shitty thing to do. And Bloodraven's life has been about, yeah, I've got to do this. This is it. This is the sacrifice I've got to make. For further to lessen the bloodshed. It makes me wonder, and just Connie's point is brilliant about Ned describing to Kat in an early chapter why he was sending Bran to King's Landing with the girls. It was to heal and bridge the bad feelings between Robb and Joffrey. That is his nature. And I wonder, is this what Blackfish, and Bloodraven has been doing? Has he been holding on with the limited power he has? Is he holding on in an effort? This is the big question though, right? Is he holding on behalf of the children, or is he trying to hold on to be that bridge between the children and men? Whether the children know that or not is another thing. Has he been waiting for Bran to come? Like, the children think, oh, he's bringing Bran here for this, that, and the other. But actually, Bran is way stronger and way more powerful to reinstate the pact and to actually maybe stop the war. I don't know. I feel like
there's this thing about men forget. Even the North remembers, to me, sounds like we're supposed to remember something that we've forgotten years ago, so we're making something else up about it that makes it sound really, it's been lost in time. Men forget. Only the trees remember. So I've completely lost my point that I was trying to make. Then I've totally forgotten where I was at.
But even with somebody like Bloodraven, I mean, we only know his past from other people. It's the same with everybody's history, right? Like, we know Ned much better than most people know Ned, right? because we got to be inside his head. And we know as an audience, there's a whole other side to Ned's history than the realm knows. And I think the same is going to be true of Bloodraven. The other thing, Sunny loves your tinfoil theory, Claire. I actually don't think it's that tinfoil, though. I think it's. I don't think it's that bad. Yeah, I don't think so. I think as well, the other thing, just with the sci-fi trope that you mentioned, the other thing about a sci-fi trope, usually you have a protagonist that's incredibly curious, above the norm curious. And that's another thing that marks Bran out. I mean, it's the reason he ended up on top of a tower. It's the reason he ended up. It drove that whole first chapter, and it's something that maybe the children are, maybe overlooking. Maybe they think, oh, we've got this submissive young boy who'll be able to manipulate for us on our behalf. But maybe Bloodraven is counting on him being incredibly curious and following down paths and getting answers that they won't expect him to get. Perhaps. Maybe I'm being too nice about Bloodraven. I don't know.
Only the trees remember. Here we go. Let me see if I can remember this. So only the trees remember, which is this magical conduit for being able to go back in time and know what really happened. You can watch, you can see it, you can repeat it over and over and over again before it vanishes into smoke, but it's there, it's recorded, only the trees remember. So the only way that anybody else would know what's remembered, apart from the trees, is if there was a man who was able to connect to that and then be able to come back and interpret that, or whilst being connected to that, can communicate to things in the past or whatever, some sort of being able to say, look, this is what the trees have remembered. Let me tell you, this is what the accurate history is. You think you remember this, but nobody remembers. This is what the real thing is. Bloodraven can't do that, but I think Bran may be able to, and I think they know that. I think that's what he's been hanging in there for. What the actual
purpose of that is,
and what the end game might be, but you can't discount the fact that what's been mentioned here is something that lives forever. And on top of that, you can, if you're a green seer, you can hook into that and also live forever in a roundabout kind of way by being part of that thing. Just like Bloodraven probably always will be, he'll be there. So Bran in the future will be able to kind of slip into the trees and it'll be like, oh, hello, Brynden. There he is, sat in a corner, kind of rocking and kind of, it's just,
But living forever is not the same as not being able to die. It doesn't mean, like, look at the House of the Undying with Dany. There's still a vulnerability there, and the reason they're doing all this in the first place is because there's a vulnerability and they're threatened with extinction. Now, whether they see that as an extinction because they're caught between the others and the human race is another thing. There seems to be a suggestion that through summer, and if you buy the Jojen Pace theory, which I don't necessarily buy, although I do think that perhaps the children are feeding Bran both the flesh of the others and the flesh of human beings. There seems to be that's a very possible thing in this chapter. And what the purpose of that is, I don't know. If they're the singers and they need Bran to sing that song between the ice and the fire, that will require blood magic. Connie says deep-rooted memories go deep like their roots. Yeah, and memories can't be trusted. Let's get into what he sees, shall we? Because there's not, and the number 1000 obviously comes up a lot. The number 100 comes up a lot as well, though.
It does, but there's so much.
There is more of the 1000. I'll give you that, Claire.
1,000 Eyes and One. The reader lives 1,000 lives. That.
Which is a quote I have framed in my classroom.
Is it? The reader lives 1,000 lives. Perfect. The Weirwoods of 1,000 human years are just a moment to the Weirwoods. Yeah, it's just everywhere. It's all over the place in this chapter, the 1,000.
So
yeah.
let's get into the visions, because there's quite a lot to unpack here, but I don't think we're going to go through all of them, because some of them we don't need to go through, maybe. I don't know. And obviously some of them we can't really make sense of, but I just kind of jotted down the ones that stuck out to me. So, well, first of all, there's a small woman kissing a tall man at Winterfell, which is, a lot of people believe, is Nan and Dunk, because the man is as tall as Hodor, we're told.
I've actually written down the chronology of this.
Oh, go for it.
And there's 7 references, so there's 7 flashes of things that happen in history.
Go for it.
That one was like the 4th one. The first one, so what's happening is we're going back in time. The trees are getting smaller. So the first one is Ned. So he sees Ned, and Ned is saying, let them grow up as brothers, and he's hoping that his wife, Lady Stark, will have it in her heart to forgive him.
Okay, so before we move on from that one, this is why I was kind of not doing it chronologically, because I have to talk about this one.
Okay.
This is the problem with Bran. Bran is looking at that with the knowledge he already has. So this is where I think George is going to get a get out of jail free card with Bran.
Right.
That Bran won't be omnipotent in what we're I hope he won't be omnipotent. He'll be actually limited. He'll be as limited by his POV as we are as readers by his POV, if that makes sense. Because from his point of view, he sees Ned do that and he says, oh, that's obviously about Jon and Robb, right?
Yeah.
And from our point of view, it's like, yeah, but if it is about Jon and Robb, and then they are brothers, right? If you see Ned praying, and that and if Bran is coming to that like fresh with no knowledge of his background as a family or blah blah blah, then the way he reads it is, yeah, they're brothers. They're definitely brothers. The way that is. So my point is, his visions, I think, will always be tempered by bias and by his history and by the knowledge he already has. And I think that's a good thing, because it means that George will be able to limit the information we get from him. And like right there, he could have easily, because he sees Ned praying alone in front of the Weirwoods, Ned could easily have said anything.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, because of the way perhaps Bran is interpreting what he says. Yeah. Bran is seeing what he expects to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know George is saying Bran is the hardest to write for at the moment.
Well, that's what and Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest tell him this, don't they? A man must know how to look.
Yes.
You know, you otherwise you're just going to things that what you want to hear, rather than it's giving you a skewed view of things. So you must know how to look through the Weirwood eyes. The next one is a very, very brief Lyanna. Well, doesn't say Lyanna, but the description is somebody who looks almost like Arya, and she even says, "You stupid," like Arya does, and one of her brothers. So they're fighting, she knocks him into the pool, and as she's dragging him out, the memory kind of vanishes into mist. So it's Lyanna and question mark, one of the brothers. It could be any of them. It could be Ned, Benjen, Brandon, it could have been any of her brothers. The next one is going back again. Obviously, we're going back through time. So you see a heavily pregnant woman emerging from the pool, and she prays to the Weirwood for a son to avenge her.
Who's this? Because I know there's some theory out there. I'm not very good with Stark history at all. I know there is some theory about maybe an obscure woman. I can't remember what her name is, but it's some Stark. I wondered, could this have something to, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. Could this have something to do with Bale the Bard? It's further back in history than Lyanna. So my initial thoughts were, I wonder, does this lend anything to the theory that Lyanna was actually at Winterfell when she had Jon, but it's further back than the previous one, so it can't be that.
It could be their mother. It could be Ned and Lyanna's mother. She's pregnant with one of the sons. Maybe, I don't know what Rickon and his wife's relation. Wasn't she one of the mountain clans or something? It was in the World of Ice and Fire. Everyone always wanted to know who Ned Stark's mother was, and I think she was Flint or something. Or
but to avenge the father's death, to avenge her father, or avenge her husband, is it? Avenge your father is what the thing is, isn't it? So it wouldn't be Rickard at that stage. So it must be further back. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that could be anybody. It could just be an illustration of like a she-wolf of Winterfell.
Well, yeah, that's what Sonny reckons. Yeah.
The woman kissing a tall knight.
Old Nan.
Yeah, a lot of people think that that's Old Nan and
father, maybe.
Yeah.
Dunk.
I mean, another tall knight is obviously Dunk. Yeah. And then you get a very, very brief flash of a young boy with black hair shaping arrows from the Wayward branches. Nothing else. That's it.
So that is supposed to be Bran Snow, I think is his name, or Brynden Snow. I think it's Bran Snow, who wanted to shoot down a dragon with a weirwood arrow.
Okay.
Apparently, I looked up that one before. I think.
Right. Okay.
I'll probably get corrected for that one, but I think that's what that one is.
Even further, way back, you see a lot of tall, stern lords. So, like the kings of way back in history, the kings of winter. Bran recognised some of the facial features with the tombs in the crypts. Yeah, and then the last one, way back in history, is there's a captive and a white-haired woman with a sickle, and she murders the captive, and so she opens his throat and his life flowed from him, and that's where the chapter ends, when Bran can taste the blood in his mouth.
Because it goes into it's obviously a blood sacrifice out of Weirwood. So the thing about these visions, they jump back in time in varying degrees, right? It's not like the last 200 years. Like it goes from the last 20 years to the last, to like, maybe 2,000 years or whatever it is. Yeah. The last one, is that a Night's King, Night's Queen reference? Is it something else? I didn't really know what that one was. Is it just to see what the Starks were?
I'm just thinking, if the Weirwoods are gods and the children of the forest are intertwined with the gods, and also they seem pretty nifty at whipping up some sort of like blood stew and weird white paste. So there's something weirdly kind of cannibalistic or morbid about the children of the forest. But they, going back to that fantasy trope of like eternal life, living forever, where does that source come from? Well, again, another sci-fi trope it comes from, or kind of fantasy trope, is it comes from the lifeblood, the life force of something else. And these human sacrifices are what are fueling the trees being able to live forever. And the children of the forest are, it's almost like this thing about, we were never great in number. And some of us actually have got even extra special powers with the green eyes or the red eyes, but we don't live long, we don't live forever. But once we get into those ones, the ones with the different colour eyes, as soon as they get into the trees, they're there for the longest time, like long time.
Yeah, but what are you doing in there?
Yeah. Seeing everything, being able to see absolutely everything, way back.
Yeah. It is like when he sees those visions, it's so tantalizing, because it's like, are those visions are you just bouncing around the weirwood net? It doesn't seem to be that way, because why not go anywhere then? Like, he must have a genetic connection with every one of those visions, right? There must be
they're
something.
all, there's the thing that connects every single one of these visions is Bran being back in Winterfell. So they're all in that location. They're all based around that weirwood, you know, the Heart Tree and the Godswood at Winterfell.
But if that's true, then like, why not go to when Alysanne bought her dragon? Like they see, it seems as if he has no control over what he's seeing. He
doesn't. This is what the training is like. Bloodraven, a man must know how to look. Almost even sounds a bit like the kindly man instructing Arya. You know, you've got this ability, these powers, this thing. You're way all over the place. You've got to go through these trials. You've got to be blind. You've got to be, you know, wear a different face. You've got to go all through all of these training things.
But more than that, though, it's like, okay, he goes back to Winterfell, his happy place or whatever, right? He seems to be directing at least where he goes, right? In terms of the place.
There's surprisingly a lot more power with Bran than I think Bloodraven anticipated, the children anticipated, that you know, he's not supposed to be able to do any of this stuff, yet he's falling asleep, just napping in bed, and he's all of a sudden whizzing through time and he's back at Winterfell, so he can do it almost on command.
But my question is, if he gets to dictate the place, somebody else is or something else is dictating the time. Something else is showing him, or maybe it's not, but it seems as if he's being shown things he needs to see.
I think by the children. They're the ones that the essence of them, the spirit of them, are inside the trees, and they have been for a long time.
So my question is, why those things? So why Ned praying? Why Lyanna pushing someone into a pool? Why a pregnant woman looking for revenge? Or are they completely random? I don't think, especially the last one with the sickle. I know it may not be the case in the world in Westeros or Planetos or whatever it is, but certainly in our world, we associate sickle with death, right?
Yeah.
We also associate it with freedom, like freedom.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so, like battle,
from serfdom and stuff like that. But we associate it with different things, but particularly with death, it also suggests that this is pre-Valyria, like a sword kind of being the thing you'd use for sacrifice. Like a sickle is there's something very agricultural about that being used in this ritualistic kind of way, because it feels like a ritual.
It does. I was just thinking it's the same thing as a scythe, but it's not, is it? Sickle's more like half moon. And actually, I think twice in this chapter, unless it was just my audio version had skipped, but a reference to the moon as being like a very thin crescent moon.
So perhaps there's something to do with using the sickle at that point in the moon cycle, and that's when you.
Or maybe it was just foreshadowing
just before the moon goes completely black. Maybe you're trying to bring back a full moon. Maybe the Starks are werewolves. I don't know. Maybe you can go anywhere with that. But it's so like, are these just? Is it just him bouncing across the weirwood with no real purpose to the visions, or does George want us? Or does George want us to see that there's a pattern here for Bran? There's some sort of puzzle for Bran. The other thing is it who is Lyanna pushing in? And I think it's more to do with the Arya thing, because we get references again to the worm in the three-eyed raven's eye and all that kind of thing, and just Arya eating the worm out of the kindly man. I don't think it will be possible for Arya to ever be in the situation where she has to kill the three-eyed raven, but would she be in a situation where she maybe has to take out Bran? Like, is that eating of the worm something to do with Bran? and him seeing Lyanna pushing her brother into a pool. In like, is this something? Is this Arya pushing? Will Arya have to take out Bran? That's another thing.
Yeah, there's some interesting comments here.
Yeah.
So the Sunny is Connie. The South Shore don't want to be watched by the trees. That's for sure. I think we've still got some more mighty, powerful trees to stumble across in dark places, which to me means underground. So we've got to think about the significant things that we know that are underground, like, you know, the House of Black and White, and there's all sorts of things going on there. Sunny, the way Dany can't control the dragon she created, are you saying that Bran will also get out of control? Possibly. I mean, there is this thing about time, and that's described in quite a bit of detail. You know, a moth only lives a day, but to them that must feel like an absolute eternity. And that with the trees, well, with men, there's that definitive. I don't know. Speak to the planning queen. That, you know, flow of time between past, present, planning the future, that kind of thing. But with the trees, it's back and forward, back and forward. There isn't. It's more of an organic concept of time, not even really a flow of time. So
well, isn't there something that is it in Bran's chapter? The first line is we should go back, or John's chapter. Like, there's some chapter where that's like the big thing. I know. So Gemma talks about that.
The way it's described is, you know, the trees don't see time the way that men see time. Yet when he's shown these visions, if you like, through the, like, slipping into the Wayward tree, it's definitely like chronologically shown backwards in time, as if it is deliberate.
The only way Bran's brain can process it.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Whereas, you know, time isn't necessarily a straight line.
So do you think that this is, it almost feels like this is the beginning of Bran being taught a series of lessons, and at some point he'll probably, you know, Bloodraven will be taken away from him before his time, and before he finds out the final, whatever it is he needs to find out. So I think this will continue into Winds, where because in this chapter they're talking about, like, you're ready for the next step, and that's when he gives him the Weirwood. You know, he's already been walking ravens, and so he has actually flown. He's done the whole, you know, you won't walk but you'll fly. He's done, that's like, you know, so last year now for him. But he's now you know, it's described as the next step. I don't know, it's like he's at Hogwarts or something, you know, and he's cracking different levels, and he's kind of leveling up each time. So I think there is going to be more of a process. I don't think it's just like, oh right, okay, he's now entered the trees and he's whizzing backwards in time through Winterfell. There's more to learn. He needs to, like, it's been alluded by Bloodraven, a man must know how to look, not just, you can do it, we all know you can do it, but you need to know how to do it, and also why, what you're doing it for, what's the reason. Can you do more than I can? Is it more than just watching? Well, are you able to kind of
It seems like AU says what confuses me is, why couldn't Bran have stayed in the crypts to learn this from Bloodraven? I totally agree. It's like there has to be a purpose. It's true. This journey, there has to be, like, you know, the hero's journey has to be. There has to be something.
His watch has begun. He will be at his post while he, you know,
I can't help but think it's also a safety thing, that because the war is coming south, that maybe it'll pass them by wherever they are right now. That it could also have to do with the oldest trees being there. That could be it. I also liked Connie's idea, saying that maybe the other singers that Bran sees as Hodor, maybe they're navigators of some sort. That could certainly be true. But I think there's this song idea. The idea that Bran may be the one that sings this song, the song that is going to save the world for whatever reason, or for whoever side, or whatever it is. It has to be more than R plus L equals J. There has to be a bigger reason than that. I hope there is, because that's the way the show have built it up. I really, really hope they do something. I hope they don't ignore Bran's character in the show, because I feel like there has to be a lot more to this. And I think it goes back to the Starks being central to the pact of some sort, or maybe I don't know. There's something about blood magic and the Starks that he needs to find out. And it's way more complicated than what we think it is. Maybe.
Before the white paste, it's not just the paste. He's also been eating this blood stew where they're trying to guess, the three of them, what kind of meat it is. Oh, like Mira thinks it's rat, and somebody else guesses that it might be squirrel, and Bran's like, I don't care, it tastes nice, I'm just going to eat it anyway. And it's like, whoa, there's just so much grisly shit in this chapter that's like, oh my God, that's just vile.
So outside of the Weirwood net, can the children and Bloodraven tell when Bran is warging Hodor, do you think? If he's doing that independently of saying being attached to the Weirwood net?
Well, that's an interesting question, because if they don't, then they're not going to know how powerful he can become, and
that he can escape.
Yes, yeah, and that he can way overtake what their concept and understanding of what the trees are. Are they like conduits of, are they places of worship? Are they actual gods themselves? Do they become gods by being part of the whole system themselves?
The reason I ask is that if somebody is kind of dictating a little bit what he sees and what he doesn't see in the Weirwood network and in the past, there's every chance he could overhear something in the present that he's not supposed to overhear yet. So, for instance, when he wargs Hodor,
that's true, and
Jojen and Mira are having a conversation, and he hears that they're talking about, the Green Sea or whatever. I mean, there's every chance they could have said, yeah, but Dad said that we have to come here because, Jon Snow, blah, blah. Like, there's every chance that they could, he could hear anything.
Yeah, he could. Yeah.
So it could end up like, not that it won't end, it will always matter, but his curiosity is such, it's the reason he's in trouble in the first place.
So he's got to stick around. He's got to stick around, and he's got to find the next step from Bloodraven, which is to know how to look, because that's what he's going to want to overhear. We were sent here. I know, just this whole thing about Jojen being very solitary and sullen, and this like accepting of his fate, but nobody really quite, I mean, we know what happened in the TV show, but it's just very strange.
Another thing just dawned to me. What if he's skin changed into Hodor, not necessarily Hodor, but somebody else, and that person is whited while he's skin changing them? That would be interesting.
I wonder if the essence of the actual person that they were before they were whited is in there somewhere.
That's how we might find out.
Yeah.
That's exactly how we might
find out. Just put me out of my misery, just end it now. I can't
wonder, are they all in a pit?
Part of the army of the dead kind of thing. They could be.
Are they all in a pit? And if that's the case, can they be released?
Yeah.
Anyway, so many questions. This was a bit of a heady chapter. It's a very, and I'm so glad that we have the Jon and Dany chapters to come down on, because I don't really have that much to say about the Jon and Dany chapters.
Not really.
But it does kind of break my head. It makes me kind of want to go back before Winds and just do a Bran only reread, actually. And just kind of try and get my head around, because it's the Bran chapters, and since the beginning, Bran chapters have always been so different to everybody else's chapters. It can be hard. The jump can be a bit of a lurch sometimes.
They're almost standalone, aren't they?
Yeah, totally. So then we have Jon 7, and as you said, Jon 7 and Dany 6 kind of work. The parallels they're both in a bad situation. So Jon is bringing new recruits to swear oaths, and a lot of them have decided to go to the Weirwood, which it wasn't typical. So,
well, some of them are wildlings, so that's not too much of a surprise. But then there are people like Satin from Old Town, who you would expect to be, you know, the Seven through and through.
Mm-hmm.
But he's decided, actually, forget that. I think, but I mean, think back to Sam and his acceptance of the old gods, and there may be that resignation of, you know what, whatever my life was before, here I am at the wall, I'm in the north. Those gods never helped me before, you know, why not try this? The Lord Commander worships these gods, so, you know, it doesn't surprise. I mean, who knows how many, what percentage of that is the whole, like, you know, recruiting for the last few months or whatever. But Jon's very kind of like, you know, it's now or never. The conditions are right. We need to go out now. It's like, if we leave this any longer, then, you know, you're not going to be able to take your vows. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting that the wildlings, there's a couple of wildlings that have joined in because that would have massive consequences for all of the other wildlings. That, you know, you're going to be targeted. It's not, you know, but then there's something quite, I don't know, quite sweet, I suppose, in a way, about them feeling like they want to get behind this, and that there is a purpose, and they've seen what's beyond the wall, and, you know, yeah.
So if the wall comes down, will Jon be blamed for putting women in at a garrison? Will he be blamed for putting women on the wall? Because that's one of the big things that they're like, there shouldn't be any women on the wall. But like, will people have all these superstitions? Like, I think that's nonsense. I don't think there's anything that's going against any magical presence or anything to have women on the wall. It's probably just more to do with safety than anything else. But he's doing things here that nobody else has done. He's garrisoning parts of the wall that people haven't thought about, let alone like people haven't even remembered those places are there. And he's trying to really, like, he's doing too much, first of all, right? He's doing too much, and he needs to kind of delegate a little bit more. I feel like he's not sharing his intentions. He's not making it clear. He's not giving good enough reasons, because he's moving so fast to do things. I don't think he's explaining the steps to people.
But I don't think he's quite clear on who he can trust and not trust. And just from the letter, the way that he reacts to the letter, he can't help being pleased that there's a letter there from Stannis, which to me makes me feel as though he feels a bit out on a limb without Stannis being there. When Stannis was there, whatever it was Jon was doing, if he was doing something really wrong, then maybe the king would, you know, there's just that comfort, I suppose, or something reassuring to Jon about Stannis being around, or someone just a grown-up being around to step in when need be. And he's not got that, and I don't think he really, apart from people like Ed, but even that, he's keeping people at arm's length, I guess, really, at the moment, isn't he? So he's in a very difficult position. There's this mounting feeling of him. Yeah.
I think that's what's hurting him, and ironically, the exact reverse is happening with Dany. She's letting too many people in.
There's a lot of direct
on her own at the end of Dance.
There's a lot of direct parallels between Jon's chapter and Dany's chapter. The main one for me being that Jon is freezing corpses and Dany's burning them in her chapter. So it's, you know, again, that ice and fire.
Yeah.
He wants to just, I don't know, experiment, see what's going on with it, you know, throw the dead bodies in the ice cells, which obviously they're going, you know, they come back as whites, and she's burning the diseased bodies in Marine.
So, good idea, bad idea, Jon leaving Castle Black at this stage? I feel like he should.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think he's caught, really. I mean, but he's all these great ideas about building. Is it like what sounds like greenhouses of some sort and glass houses?
Yeah.
Like I feel like in a peacetime Jon as leader would do amazing things with the wall.
Yeah.
But then they do need crisis time Jon as well as a leader, and I don't think he can be both, and he's trying to be both.
Yeah.
You can't reinvent the wall and protect it at the same time. I don't think you can do it because you're trying to do it all.
Yeah.
And
that's a little bit like that quote from Ygritte, you know, a man can have a wife or a knife, but you can't have both, or something like that.
Yeah. And this is why this is why kings and queens have hands, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't make the big picture decisions and get into the minutiae of running a kingdom. And as small as the wall is, it is a mini kingdom, because well, it's not mini, it's huge distance. But I feel like he could benefit from like somebody who's a military tactician. Like he's a general, he's a king, and he's a treasury, like the head of treasury. He's everything, and it's just too much. It's too much. So Stannis's letter.
I've just got to say again the parallels between Bloodraven and Bran and those vows. My watch begins, and I've just put in brackets with 1,000 eyes, because that's what the watch is. You just I see everything with my 1,000 eyes on one. Live and die at my post. You literally entwined in your post. And the walls, plural. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but in the vows, that's, I don't know.
Well, there's a couple of things here. The walls in the vows, so we've talked about the tree line being a wall. I have wondered also, is there supposed to be like a gap between the walls?
Yeah,
like
maybe.
They have the Night's Watch have, like, it's a huge frozen bridge basically, and like the entire length of the wall, and you can have horses up there if you want. But I wonder, is it, if the wall was defrosted, would it be 2 walls? And has it just frozen over time and fused, and kind of like, has something changed?
I wonder if that's why there always has to be a Stark in Winterfell, because the other wall is Winterfell's wall.
Oh yeah, AU just said the same thing. Great minds. 2 walls walls in Winterfell. Oh, is that what you meant, AU? Sorry, 2 walls in Winterfell. That could be it. It could be the walls of Winterfell. Yeah, could be. Yeah.
The watchers on the walls. So that's the wall.
I feel like the trees, because there's references to the
tree line.
Wall of tree. There's references to that, and the trees are almost touching the wall at this stage in parts. There's a few things, but yeah, so we've got Stannis' letter. We've also got lots of references to Ghost and him feeling like sometimes
these mini warg episodes again. He can smell the fear. He can hear somebody's heart beating.
It seems like warging isn't even strong enough a word for it.
No, it's breathing. It's just it happens automatically, just momentarily. He doesn't know if he's him or Ghost because of the senses that he's feeling, and he's the only Stark to experience this. I think that in those very short, those.
I said that all the time. I think he's the strongest warg. I think Bran is the strongest skin changer, but I think he's a stronger warg because it's absolutely effortless.
I mean, there may be something about Arya's ability is about distance. Her warging can be over.
Totally, absolutely. And we don't know about Rickon yet.
Yeah, there could be different types of warging, but I did think it was quite. I mean, maybe this is one of perhaps the biggest foreshadowing bits. Again, it's going back to Bran's chapter, but where he says that he had this thought in his head. I don't know if it was a dream or not, or whether he just thought about it, but it was about all the Stark children being ravens in like Maester Lewin's rookery, and that's how they'd all end up as just like 5 ravens in the rookery at Winterfell, because they were all able to, like, you know, walk into the ravens, and that's how, you know, that's how they'd end their days, kind of thing. And it was like, shit, might that happen to them?
But warging is just for dogs and wolves, right?
Oh, skin, skin changing.
So that maybe they're all skin changers then. That would be interesting.
We could all be ravens in Maester Lewin's rookery.
That's actually something I meant to ask you. So we have to presume that there's a singer in Mormont's Raven that's with John all the time as well.
Yeah.
So what was the singer trying to say? Well, you have the code there as well.
Oh
but that opens up a bag. I'm not going to open up that bag, but that's Pandora's box there. But this effortless. I mean, it's so effortless that it gives me great hope that John will come back, more or less. John, if he's resurrected.
You know, just on that, completely playing devil's advocate of, if, just imagine yourself as a brother on the wall, just average, you know, you're a builder or something like that on the wall, and you know what you're facing. You've got this new, like, boy commander who just doesn't seem to really know what he's doing, and then all of a sudden he turns up after taking some kids out to, like, say the words before a tree. He turns up with a fucking giant. Are you shitting me? Get rid of him. He can't be trusted. He's bringing these, you know, I'm playing devil's advocate. I can kind of see, because we don't get the consequence of this. He just turns up. I mean, Ed kind of laughs it off a bit and, like, oh, we might need to, like, get some butter around that giant to get him through the wall and stuff. But there's no, apart from John saying to Leathers, can you kind of chaperone him and keep an eye on him and, like, look after him? And Leather's reaction is, like, momentarily like, oh, really? Okay, yeah, sure.
I mean, a giant is that's no laughing matter. Like, you look wrong at a giant and they'll kill you.
Yeah. That's going to have a huge impact on the existing men.
I prefer take Ghost. I prefer deal with a direwolf than deal with a giant.
And there aren't that many wildlings. He's in a very precarious position here, and he's just piling it on and feels like he's making it worse for himself, really, because there aren't even that many wildlings at the wall at the moment, because a lot of them have gone with Stannis, haven't they?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, I can totally see why they kill him, by the way. This is like Caesar's changing the gameplay while the game is starting. You know, the reason why military is so disciplined and has so many rules, and why they have these vows that they say these things to one another over and over again, it's so that when they find themselves in the middle of a crisis, all of that stuff is automatic. And when you suddenly are at the precipice of a crisis and a boy commander takes over and changes all the rules, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That stuff was all automatic for a reason. You're changing everything now. It's not going to be automatic. What do you mean I need to work with the people that I'm supposed to be fighting? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute. And there's no evidence of him sitting everybody down and explaining this to them. And maybe he just feels he doesn't have to. I don't know.
More sort of reinforcing this concept of, it's not about whether or not because they've got it at the wall. They have it. It's encapsulated into the vows. It doesn't matter if you're from a noble house, if you're base-born, if you've committed a crime, whatever, you're accepted here on the wall. what he should be doing constantly is reinforcing this idea of it doesn't matter who the wildlings are. The massive battle here, if you haven't clicked already, is between the living and the dead.
But you see, this is the thing, most people haven't seen that, and Jon is assuming that everybody's taking that as gospel. And see, you know, seeing or believing is not seeing. No, seeing is not. Anyway, whatever I'm trying to say, he's taken far too much for granted from a largely illiterate, undereducated, uneducated force. He's taken far too much for granted. He's also pushed his friends away. He doesn't eat with them anymore. He doesn't hang out with his friends, so they don't have anything to report back really either. They trust him, but they don't have anything beyond that to report back. Oh, look, Jon is doing this because this, this, and this. I mean, even if he just hung out with them a bit more and had lunch with them and just, you know, I think he's too reliant on Ghost saving him. And I think he relies too much on common sense prevailing amongst the men. And that's just not, that's not.
However, let's not bash Jon too much, because he did actually figure out in this chapter, hang on a minute, what if this whole Arya thing is not real and it's a scam? And it's like, well done, Jon, because nobody else has got that. Not even Stannis storming off to tackle this has figured out. Actually, maybe this is just a ruse to lure them into basically complete defeat and smashing Stannis's forces. Stannis hasn't got his head around that yet. He's just like, oh my god, people are joining me every day. They're coming out from the hills and like joining me, and like I've now got this like Ironborn princess, and you know, it's all seems to be working out. Let's go. But it's like, yeah.
No, and you know, it is easy to bash Jon and Dany, and I think where Jon isn't sharing enough information, Dany's sharing far too much.
Yes,
so they are really like they don't know how to balance that. That's one thing Tyrion is good at. He knows when to shut up and he knows when to talk when he's sober. But Roos's ruse, I like that AU.
I think there's so much more to those vows than we think they are. I think they could equally be vows for green seers. Like, you know, I'm passing the baton on to you. You need to say these vows. Your watch has now begun. And Bran will be like, yeah, I'll watch. But actually, I'm going to see if I can communicate as well, because I'm more powerful than you. So let's go.
And in contrast to that, there's going to be a lot more to the vows of the Kingsguard. Potentially, if the Targaryens twigged something was up in the north. If there's something in the Kingsguard vows.
Men forget and the trees remember, but things like vows that do not change from generation to generation.
To not be forgotten.
Yeah. There's something in that. The meaning might be different.
There's definitely reason. Yeah.
It could be that those vows were invented completely for somebody else, for another group of people, but they've been adopted by the Night's Watch.
Yeah.
I just think I don't know what it is, but I've got this thing in my head about there being a connection between Bloodraven only being able to watch and the Watchers on the Wall, and how similar the words in the vows are to his experience in that cave.
Every word must carry meaning, because look at how house words carry meaning, how they become to define a house over generations. And alternatively, most houses also have an alternative house motto, like the Lannisters. So,
I just think there's going to be at least one, maybe two or three moments of like, oh my god, that's what the vows were about. Oh my, yeah, I can see it now. Now you know, just that reveal of like what you take for granted in this, whether it's the Night's Watch vows, the Kingsguard vows, house words, you know, songs that these things that filter down through generations. Something's lost somewhere.
Well, even like the last line, all the nights to come, it may be all the times that they're going to have to do this in history, all the times. It's not just like about each individual night. It's like the periods of winter and long nights that they're going to have to go through.
Maybe it's that, like, you know, you think you know all the songs, and you know, you could replace the word songs with theories. You think you know all the songs in this story. You've heard them over and over again, time and time again. You've listened to it, i.e. you've reread and reread and reread. But this is the actual Song of Ice and Fire, and that's the moment where you go, oh, right, yeah. I'm hoping that I think as a writer, he is that kind of person where It's like, you know, you want to get that satisfactory sort of like, shit, I knew there was something right there in front of us all along that was like, you can flip it around and just completely see where you could have, you know, I don't know.
I definitely think there will be that moment. And I think I think with George, it'll be a few moments like that. It'll be, I think everybody will get their moment. It won't necessarily, like what I see won't necessarily be what you'll see and that kind of thing. There'll be a moment with the Night's Watch. There'll be a moment with the Kingsguard. There'll be a moment with the Targaryens. There'll be a moment with the Lannisters. There'll be lots of moments like that moment in Harry Potter when you realize this might not be Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This could be Neville Longbottom and the Philosopher's Stone. You know, but for a twist of fate and a decision from one single character, this could be an entirely different series. And I think we'll have a few of those. All right, so the only thing I have written down for Dany, because I ran out of time this week, is young girls can sometimes change their mind.
A little bit like a Turncloak.
A little bit, yeah.
She's a Turncloak.
She doesn't turn her cloak, she just drops it.
Yeah, she just drops her knickers. Yeah. She is kind of like a Turncloak in love, you know. She does this ridiculous kind of like, oh, well, I am a little girl and I don't really know what I'm doing, you know. So to me, she's turning a cloak on that queenly responsibility that she decided that she had in the last chapter. But
to be fair, you can see why. It's like those super powerful men that like to be in submissive roles.
Yeah.
You know, they like to dress up as babies.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, just take it all away for a few minutes, Dario, please.
I haven't really got a massive amount to say here. At the beginning of this chapter for me, all about the mother has no milk. So she's going out. She's got this massive, it's horrible. Again, it's quite grisly. You know, the like the cloaks of flies and things like that. It's just horrible. She comes to the realization that the sick that she has there, these Astapori ex-slaves who see her as mother, they're all doomed to die. Then she, you know, I think she's coming to that realization here, but also it's executed later on in this chapter. But again, there's this thing about being cursed. The man must not eat the flesh of man, and that it's a curse. And also going back to the flies, the cloak of 1,000 flies. I think that the reason that Dany's not afflicted by this disease of common men, which makes me like, again, there are times with Dany where I feel as though, I don't know, is she a god? She seems to describe herself as like elevated above, like, I mean, I know you could say, you know, there's a difference between like, you know, landed gentry and common men, but the way she says it is almost as if she's above humanity. There's like a different step. There's like ordinary flesh and bones human beings, and then there's Targaryens. But maybe there is. Maybe again she's like, I'm considering like, who is a god here? Could the children of the forest be gods because they're eternally inside this network? Is Dany a god, and she's the reason that she's not afflicted by this disease of common men is because she brought the disease. She was the bringer of disease to Astapor.
I wonder, like, because at this time, like if you map Planetos onto like our own history in like, you know, kind of late Middle Ages into the Elizabethan era, like the divine right of kings is at its climax. It's about to approach its climax in human history. But here it seems as if in this series the magical right of kings is reaching a climax, and that certainly seems to be the case with Targaryens. They're more magically they feel like they're magically have this right to power. And maybe that's true of the Weirwood network as well. There's a magical right to rule.
Do you think there'll be any dragons at the end of this story? Because that's the biggest magical, like, right, I suppose you could say, that Dany has.
I think
there are three from what we know. I mean, who knows? There could be other like wild dragons living somewhere, but as far as anybody knows in this book series at the moment, there are 3 living dragons.
I'm not as convinced as everybody else is that this series is going to see the end of the cycle that Planetos is in. I'm not as convinced. I think there might be an extended period maybe of peace, but I'm not entirely sure if it'll be completely clear at the end that the world will have escaped this cycle of long nights, that the world will have purged itself of dragons and magics, or that magic will be released never to be put back inside the box again. I'm not as convinced that it'll be as clean as some people, because George constantly likens it to Lord of the Rings. It's not a clean end in Lord of the Rings either. You know, it's not as clean as you think it's going to be. I think there's those ways in which you can read into it. If you look at what inspired Tolkien and Lewis and the great like fantasy writers, World War II in particular, World War II technically doesn't end until the Berlin Wall comes down in 1989. That's technically the end of World War II, right? It doesn't like the Cold War it leaves people in limbo, and I think there's going to be a sense of this limbo or purgatory or not. I think there's going to be a sense that yes, we made it through, but there's a huge cost, and there's going to be a sense of let's pick up our broken tools.
Just repairing and restoring and healing, and from whatever the devastation or the destruction or the regime was previously. I don't know whether I'm just fixated on this week being something to do with a lot. There's a big like religion and vows and that kind of thing here for me, but considering could Dany be a god or some sort of like instrument of a god? And again, does that mean that there is going to be more of a relationship between Dany and R'hllor possibly? But she says that she feels there's a quote here from Dany: God sent this pestilence to haunt me, but the reason that you're being haunted by this pestilence was because you massively fucked up in Astapor. You didn't leave a decent structure there in place. You left a whole host of just recently freed slaves that didn't know what the hell to do. So they decided to make this pilgrimage to find you as their mother, savior, etc. And you're just going to lock them out of your city and take the dead of them and burn them. I understand why that's happening, but it's just she is the pestilence. She is the pestilence. God didn't send this to haunt you. You created this, and again, I don't know whether it is this kind of symbolic. She says that she doesn't feel that she's been cold and she's been hungry, but she's never been ill. When she does get ill, actually, right at the very end of this book, she does get ill from whatever it is, but there is sickness there. But she, she just feels as though I think symbolically she's not affected by this disease because she created the disease, and that's why somehow she's got some sort of immunity
I have a theory
to
on
it.
this. I think Dany unleashed magic in a lot of ways, okay, with the birth of the dragons. And now I think it has broken the bond between her and the dragons. And the longer that bond is broken, the longer she refuses to visit them, refuses to keep the connection going, the sicker the people get, the sicker she'll get. I think until that's reconnect, that bond is the connection again is made there. Because if you look at the history of the Targaryens and the death of the dragons, it was a prolonged death.
Yeah.
And the Targaryens got sicker, and the line got sicker and weaker as well. So I feel like there's some magical bond there between there's something there between the disease that's being caused and the magical bond that she's breaking. The other thing is the dying are eating the dead in Meereen. And I'm not entirely sure if that's like foreshadowing or if it's just, if we're going to see a mirroring then in Westeros where the dead will be eating the dying.
Yeah, maybe.
Because there is a lot of mirroring with Dany and Jon, say. But,
well, speaking of which, Connie said, and very good point, that in terms of the parallel, Dany's locking them out and Jon's bringing them in. So, you know, in terms of the city walls, but they
both are disasters and necessary, by the way.
Yes,
it's which is right. I don't know. Are they doing the right thing? Or are they doing the wrong thing? Yeah,
I mean, it does haunt her, and later on in the chapter, she feels dreadful. That, I mean, you can see why she wants a bit of comfort from Dario by the end of this chapter. She finds out that Brown Ben Plum has turned, which she's extremely pissed off about. But she also finds out that, you know, she's got to do all these ridiculous kind of rituals and stuff. So and she also comes to the horrible realization that she has to shut these people out of the city. She can't feed them. She can't, you know, they've come all this way for this salvation, and she's just going to go, sorry. Just that must be horrible, a horrible feeling.
The things that were admirable about her when she first took over seem so trivial now. Like the opening up the fighting pits.
Yeah.
It's just like, whatever, Dany, whatever. People are eating diseased dead corpses.
Yeah.
Just do whatever you need to do. Like, now I will say though, his star, I don't know if this is like, if it's a false flag from George, but I mean, this guy is definitely making a play for power here.
It's
so obvious. It's so blatant.
Yeah.
My goodness, Marwyn. What was that?
What's going on? Oh, the cat walked past one of his treats very slightly.
Oh,
can't have that. So no.
Oh no. That's like Dany and his star. Oh no, you can't do that.
Little mini scuffle there.
But his star is so creepy. He's a creepy guy.
Before we get into his star, can I just throw this in that I'd totally forgotten about this? The Unsullied have a secret goddess that only they know the name of.
Oh yes. Is it all Unsullied or is it just the eunuchs? It's eunuchs in general, is it?
Yes. I mean,
it's eunuchs in general.
Eunuchs in general.
Yeah, because that made me think of Varys.
She goes by many names, which sounded a little bit like a many-faced goddess.
Well, it also makes sense as to why Varys and the Unsullied might work in Dany's favour if they see her as the embodiment of their goddess.
That's the only time I think that Grey Worm has ever said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't follow that order." she said, "What's the name?" And he said, "I'm sorry, forgive me, Your Grace. I can't know."
The only time he's refused. Oh, right, okay, yeah. Yeah, I forgot all about it as well. But is it just the Unsullied, or is it eunuchs? I thought it was eunuchs. Maybe I'm wrong.
Her true name is only known to the Unsullied.
Maybe I just read Unsullied and I think eunuchs.
Eunuchs, yeah. I think the phrase eunuchs, but I don't know if it is all eunuchs. That would be interesting if anyone knows that in the chat.
Yeah.
This goddess that goes by many names.
Maybe because sometimes when I read something like that, I go off on tangents, and in my head I was thinking, oh, what about Varys then?
I just thought it was interesting that it was she of many, for this goddess is she of many faces, and then we have the many-faced god. And I was like, hang on, does this mean that there's a link here between the faceless men and the Unsullied?
Potentially. It also, because Varys never mentions any religion. He's against magic, but he doesn't mention religion. It might also justify his support for Dany, despite her magical properties and her magical connections. Maybe.
So there's this ridiculous wedding preparation meeting that she goes to where she has to have a naked inspection to check out if can you imagine? Can you even begin to imagine that happening?
Yeah, I know.
Like in our world. I'm sure it does in some cultures, actually. Yeah. Naked inspection of fertility and this washing feet ritual to donate that she's going to be his handmaid. Well, she can't have that. She's a Targaryen. She's the mother of dragons, breaker of chains.
Did you notice
all the other stuff?
Did you notice the pearls?
Yeah.
And she thinks 100 children. Why would I want 100 children? That made me think of the Night's Watch. It made me think of the Night King.
Yeah.
Maybe 100 children. Craster, don't know. There's that the number 100. It's not as important as 1,000. Although Connie thinks that might be just because they can only count to 1,000.
Yeah, maybe it could be. It really genuinely could be that. It's very, very convenient here that as part of this, what would make anybody's ears prick up if they were into the politicking going on in Meereen. Whatever's going on in terms of this ceremony, the big thing that's happening is all of the nobles are going to be trotting out of the pyramids and all being there to witness this, all in the same place, all at the same night. What a massive opportunity that is. Well, it turns out differently, as we see, but it's still it's pretty fortuitous and very silly, really, on their part that's happening. But again, it's that drive of tradition, isn't it? Of like, well, we all have to be there to witness it. It has to be in the Temple of Graces, and it has to be in front of all of the nobles.
Well, we're going to probably see something very similar in Baelor's Sept.
Yes, yeah.
King's Landing, right? So with that idea of everybody, and potentially even in over in the phrase, if there's some sort of a feast there.
So going back to the 1,000, though, it's ramped up a lot in these chapters. It's referenced at least. It used to be once every 2 or 3 chapters. It's now twice a chapter. And in this one, Hisdar is interrupted by Dario, and he kind of slowly backs out and says, "Don't worry, there'll be 1,000 other nights that we can spend time together." It's just something that's really creepy now. It's just a creepy thing that somebody says.
1001 Arabian Nights. That's the story of Scheherazade, right? Who tricks the king.
Yes. Yeah. It could be a trick. It could be that some, I don't know, who knows. And then at the end of this chapter, she gets all fruity with Dario, and we find out that what we already knew, which was Dario saying who's turned and who's Turncloak, and Brown Ben Plum has turned to the second son. So we know there's a spoiler chapter from Winds, isn't there, when Tyrion, who is a second son, ends up rocking up with the Brown Ben Plum and the Second Sons.
I feel like it's a long time since we saw Quentin.
Well, we get to. I think he's going to be in the next Dany chapter, because we get to find out that there are some sellswords from the Windblown that have turned, and of course, we already know who they are. Yeah.
Connie says that it could be Miss Sandy. It could be the goddess speaking 19 languages. AU says C3PO. Is that because he speaks so many languages, or because he's a unit? Which is it? And, so next week it's the Prince of Winterfell to the Turncloak. And Jon and Tyrion are in there as well, and the Watcher, and so
I think the one, just from title alone and our discussions this week and my crazy tinfoil theories, I'm looking forward to the Watcher the most, I think.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, can't wait for that.
The Prince of Winterfell is a long chapter, just going by how minutes wise from the audio.
The Turncloak is a good one as well, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
So
that links in and probably leads up to the Ghost. I can't wait.
When do we have the? Is it the Ghost at Winterfell? Is the Dustin Barbary one? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. 1,000 dragons were released out of the cracked moon, as said to Raya, the Lysini girl. She can count higher. Thanks, Connie. And happy Fire and Blood reading if you get to start it this week. We probably won't be talking about it, because I'll be making my way through it nice and slowly.
Yes,
When I get a chance to get to it. So thank you, Claire.
Pick it up Friday, I'll see. I don't know. I'll let you all know next Sunday.
You might want to treat yourself at the end of the week, Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.